thanks for coming in. Good to see you again. So I want to start with the budget deal. You and Patty Murray negotiated a deal, passed yesterday. Obama appears to be very supportive. But you've taken some heat from your side for some of the compromises in the deal. Was it worth it?
I knew we were going to take criticism. It's a very partisan atmosphere. It's sort of an us against them atmosphere. What I saw coming in 2014 was a bleak picture for the country. Number one, I saw a very likely and possible government shutdown scenario in January. I saw another possible shutdown scenario in October, and I didn't think that was very healthy. Patty and I had been talking all year long, but after the last shutdown, we got much more serious in our conversations. And we realized that if either of us demands that the other violates a core principle, we'll just have the same old fights like we've been having for years. And so we decided to sit down and go through the budget, the various budgets that have been offered, mine, hers, the president's, other ideas, and look for common ground. And so we painstakingly went through the budget and looked for the common ground. It kind of shows you the fact that this is a fairly small agreement, how little common ground there is. Right. But what we achieved, I think, as small as it is from a budget standpoint, it's big symbolically because we just wanted to get this divided government working at a basic level, at a basic functioning level. And so I can walk you through what it does if you'd like, if that's where we are. Sure. If you take a look at this chart, I don't know if you're going to be able to catch it on that, but the blue line is the Budget Control Act, discretionary caps that were decided in the 2011 Budget Control Act. The red line is the sequester. The super committee was charged with getting the difference between the blue and the red line. At that time, it was about $1.2 trillion. Super committee didn't work. It didn't reach consensus. So the sequester kicked in. It cut defense and it cut domestic spending. And so a lot of our members on the Republican side in the House were very worried about the future of the sequester because it hits nothing but defense going forward. We have a readiness problem. We have an acquisition problem. I can go on and on about defense problems. Suffice it to say, there were a lot of House Republicans very worried about that. You had a Republican budget that had one number in the House and then a Democrat budget that had a different number in the Senate, and thus we were heading toward a shutdown scenario again. And so what Patty and I tried to do is see if we could split the difference and then pay for it. And my bottom line going into these talks was don't raise taxes and make sure that what we do is an effort for deficit reduction. Make sure that we establish a precedence that when this fiscal pressure occurs, we advance the ball ever so slightly, but advance the ball in the right direction, which is deficit reduction without tax increases. Her objective was to get some sequester relief and get half for domestic and half for defense. So we both got out of this what we wanted. What this green, we call it fill the valley, what this green line here shows you is what this agreement achieves. We go from $987 billion now, which we were going to $967 billion in January, all from defense. We go to $12 billion, then $1014 billion in FY15 starting in October. And then we get back to the line that sequester already has, which is $1016 billion. So funding fairly flat. 70% of the sequester is still intact with this green line in the next fiscal year and a half. And then over the course of the sequester, 92% of it's intact. And we've established a precedence, at least this is to me the value of this, that when push comes to shove, we still reduce the deficit beyond the Budget Control Act. That's why this is a net deficit reducing deal. It's $85 billion in savings from what we call mandatory spending. That's the autopilot side of government spending that is very unattended to by Congress. Congress doesn't look at that stuff. Congress doesn't deal with that on an annual basis. We only do discretionary spending on an annual basis, and we haven't even done that for a few years. So $85 billion in mandatory savings to pay for $63 billion of sequester temporary relief to result in $23 billion of deficit reduction. This isn't anywhere close to the budget that I passed in March, like the prior two budgets I passed. I don't see this as a substitute for our budget. I see this as a modest step in the right direction. And more importantly, something important for 2014, which is avoiding government shutdowns, getting government to work.